This is the time for Africa to lead the world. Normally, I used to say something like this, but people does not really understand whenever I make a statement like that. But everything going on around the world is telling us that this is the time we Africans should stop consuming too much foreign content and focus much on African-made content. And that is the only way we can eradicate poverty out of our beautiful continent. And Ghana is doing exactly that, because the country is targeting to make $25 billion from export within the next 5 years, according to Kyerematen, who is Ghana's Minister for Trade and Industry.
In times of trouble, you know who your friends are. And it also points clearly to the fact that the only path forward for any country, particularly those of us in the developing world, is to build self-reliant economies. Under the National Export Development Strategy, we are projecting that we'll earn almost $25 billion over the next 5 years. And that is why industrialization is important, because if you don't industrialize, you cannot produce, and if you cannot produce, you cannot export.
He also revealed that Ghana now wants to increase its economy beyond just exporting gold and cocoa, because the country has the full potential to evolve into an export-oriented nation like other industrialized nations across the world.
30 years ago, we did not hear about China, we did not hear about Dubai, all the countries that we are celebrating today. 30 years ago, when we had the opportunity of escalating ourselves also to the top league of countries, these countries were not on the radar if we're talking about a strong performing economies. But we can see within one generation, 3 decades, China is the second most powerful country in the world, based on 2 fundamental things that they did. 1, to enhance industrial production, and 2, to export. So this is not rocket science. If we follow the same path that the great countries have followed, we would also get there. You all know that Ghana has depended on cocoa and gold for over a century. At any rate, Ghana is the leading producer of gold. And yet, if you look at the numbers, how much do we actually earn even from gold? Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana control 60% of cocoa production. And the global market for cocoa products, including chocolate, is over 100 billion. How much do we earn between our 2 countries from that? Because we are not adding value to these products. When we talk about the fact that Africa, in spite of all the natural resources that we control, still contribute only 3% of global trade, it is because what you are exporting has no value. What you are exporting has no value, or is of very little value. That is why you contribute only 3% of global trade, in spite of the fact that you control all the natural resources. So for us in Ghana, the key is to diversify our economy away from cocoa and gold. And in this regard, we are promoting 10 new strategic anchor industries.
So in this video, we would like to share with you why Ghana now wants to be an export-oriented country and how they can achieve that. But before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you very much for liking. Now, let's get started. Ghana's economy is currently facing varieties of challenges, which include rising inflation, high cost of living, high cost of fuel prices, and many more. We can't mention them all. But the fact is that Ghana is not the only country facing these kinds of challenges. The UK, for instance, has inflation rise to a fresh 40-year high of 10.1% in July this year, 2022. But in this video, we are focusing on Ghana and not the UK. So because of this challenge Ghana is facing, investors and businesses are now losing hope and confidence in the country. But there is a quote that says that hard times create strong men. So this is the time for Ghanaian leaders to think outside the box. So one new and fresh solution they have come up with is to enhance export and reduce import. And that is a brilliant solution. Enhancing export and reducing import will help the country to earn more foreign exchange to support its local currency. According to Kyerematen, who is Ghana's Minister for Trade and Industry, Ghana can achieve this by taking full advantage of the country's One District, One Factory initiative and the African Continental Free Trade Area. Without talking much, let's hear everything from Honorable Kyerematen.
The 5th Industrial Summit and Exhibition could not have come at a better time. And the theme for the summit this year could not have been more appropriate. I make these remarks based on the fact that if there was ever a time in the history of our country, our dear country, when a compelling case for industrialization has been made, I believe that time is now, for 3 reasons. First, the disruption in the global supply chains that have been occasioned by the combined effect of the COVID-19 pandemic as well as the Russian-Ukraine war has taught all countries a very bitter lesson that in times of trouble, you know who your friends are. And it also points clearly to the fact that the only path forward for any country, particularly those of us in the developing world, is to build self-reliant economies. Because you can recall, on the onset of the COVID pandemic, countries that were looking for vaccine supply, even with hard cash, could not have access to vaccines, only because even the most developed countries were looking after their own. So we have no choice in this country, particularly learning from the experience of the COVID pandemic, and also the fact that the whole world has stood by for 2 countries to control the supply of some very critical products in the world. And so this must teach us a hard lesson, that unless we industrialize, in the case and the event of any serious global crisis, will be found wanting. Secondly, the rising challenge of unemployment also points unequivocally to the need for us to take industrialization very seriously. It is not a matter of coincidence or chance that the most advanced, the most powerful economies in the world are also the most industrialized. And you can name them, from the United States to China, to Japan, Korea, India. Name all the top powerful economies in the world. They also happen to be the most industrialized. So this ought not to be a matter of debate in our country as to whether we need to industrialize or not. The third is the fact that it is only through industrialization that we can enhance exports and reduce imports. Now, when you enhance exports, you earn more foreign exchange. When you reduce imports, you conserve foreign exchange. And it means that your foreign exchange resources will then build up. And it's only when your foreign exchange resources build up that you're able to support your local currency. And if you support your local currency, then you have a stable city. So we have no choice in this country to appreciate that the path forward for us in terms of transformation is to focus on industrialization. And I know that in these very difficult times, Ghanaians have very little appetite for self-adoration. If I come and I start talking about what the government is doing, you may not appreciate it, because understandably, things are hard. But it's the same Ghanaians who keep on saying that, but we don't know that you are doing all this. We don't know exactly what is happening. And that is why in a forum like this, it's important that sometimes we also talk about what government is already doing with respect to this very important subject matter of industrialization. In 2017, when we took office, we had no doubt in our mind that the way out of the challenges that confront our economy is to industrialize. And it's against this background that we developed a comprehensive and arguably the most ambitious program for industrialization since independence, which is our 10-point industrial development agenda. And because of want of time, I'll just focus on a few of them. First is the One District, One Factory initiative. Again, in spite of all the reviews, some negative, some positive, the evidence is clear. If we are talking about promoting exports, if we are talking about import substitution, then the answer lies in projects like the 1D1F. So currently, we have about 296 projects that are at various stages of implementation. Out of this, 125 of these companies are operational. 147 of them are under construction. 24 of them are in the pipeline. So at least you can see that we are moving forward. You know, development, transformation does not happen overnight. It takes time. 30 years ago, we did not hear about China. We did not hear about Dubai. All the countries that we are celebrating today. 30 years ago, when, we had the opportunity of escalating ourselves also to the top league of countries, these countries were not on the radar if we're talking about a strong performing economies. But we can see, within, one generation, 3 decades, China is the second most powerful country in the world, based on 2 fundamental things that they did. 1, to enhance industrial production, and 2, to export. So this is not rocket science. If we follow the same path that the great countries have followed, we would also get there. And that is why government is very supportive of what the Association of Ghana Industries is doing. But in spite of the strong brand of the One District, One Factory, it is only a small component of our industrial development agenda. What I believe is the foundation of our industrial transformation is what we call the establishment of new strategic anchor industries. You all know that Ghana has depended on cocoa and gold for over a century. At any rate, Ghana is the leading producer of gold. And yet, if you look at the numbers, how much do we actually earn even from gold? Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana control 60% of cocoa production. And the global market for cocoa products, including chocolate, is over 100 billion. How much do we earn between our 2 countries from that? Because we are not adding value to these products. When we talk about the fact that Africa, in spite of all the natural resources that we control, still contribute only 3% of global trade, it is because what you are exporting has no value. What you are exporting has no value, or is of very little value. That is why you contribute only 3% of global trade, in spite of the fact that you control all the natural resources. So for us in Ghana, the key is to diversify our economy away from cocoa and gold. And in this regard, we are promoting 10 new strategic anchor industries. When you hear about Volkswagen, Toyota, Nissan cars being produced in Ghana now, it is because of the vision that this government had in identifying new strategic sectors that will diversify our economy. So one of them is the vehicle assembly. And it's not just assembling vehicles. We are also aggressively working towards developing component manufacturing so that we can produce most of the components that go into the production of our cars. We are also now promoting the garment and textile industry. A country like Bangladesh earns over $30 billion annually just by producing garments and exporting to different parts of the world. Is this something that is beyond us as a country? Obviously, no. That is why we've also identified and we are promoting the development of garments and textiles in our country. We're also aggressively developing the pharmaceutical industry. Currently, we produce only 30% of our pharmaceutical needs and requirements. It means we are importing 70%. That gap can be filled through local production. And particularly in Africa, if we are talking about pharmaceutical production, you can confidently say that Ghana is either the first or amongst the first. And so government is aggressively supporting local pharmaceutical companies who are all members of AGI to be able to enhance their exports and also to produce for the local market. The other pillar which is important is enhancing exports. We are now talking about the depreciating cedi, and it's all about, as I mentioned earlier on, the volume or the value of our resources, foreign exchange resources. Under the National Export Development Strategy, we are projecting that we earn almost $25 billion over the next 5 years. And that is why industrialization is important, because if you don't industrialize, you cannot produce. And if you cannot produce, you cannot export. So exports is fundamental to the transformation of our country. Mr. President, I could go on and on and on. As I said, people have very little appetite now listening to us politicians. But the truth of the matter is that there's so much going on in this country that sometimes you have to open your ears and also open your eyes. And the little that is going on, that may be the key to your own transformation. I know there are challenges, there are no doubt about that. And we are working our way through to ensure that we come out of what understandably is a very difficult situation.